Hello Animorphs fans, and today we're talking about number 22, the solution. The solution to all our bookie problems. Right, let's get straight into this. It's part 3 of the trilogy, starting with middle with and now finally ending with The solution. We start, where do we start again? Well, it actually starts with probably the most bizarre reference we've had in these Animorphs books so far. Rachel's in the midst of a dream, and there is a South Park reference. I looked down, and there beneath one massive fold of elephant belly was a small figure in an orange hooded anorak. Oh my god, she killed Kenny, someone cried. And I'm thinking, South Park is for 18 plus, isn't it? On the whole, South Park is an 18 plus show. Kids aren't supposed to be watching it. This book's for, it's geared towards 9 to 12-year-olds. At least it was. Why are there South Park references in this thing? Maybe Michael and Catherine knew that kids didn't bother with age restriction. I was watching South Park at that age. I was watching South Park when I was like 7, but I'm just thinking of the innocent, vulnerable population of young children out there. So yeah, that was a strange start, but a point. There's no point to it. I just thought it was fun to bring that up. Rachel is having a dream about being an elephant and then crazy stuff happening. I don't think it's relevant to anything, but she's woken up by Axe coming into a window, and he says, "Tobias is missing." It doesn't take him long to say, I think he's dead. And Jake has gone after David. He is a traitor. So Rachel morphs to Owl, and they fly to where they thought that Jake and David were going. And they find Jake at the mall. And David, funnily enough. At the end of the last book, The Threat, we had the fight between the lion and the tiger, Jake and David on top of the mall. And it ended with David crunching into Jake's neck, and they fall through the mall glass ceiling and land. And that's where the book ended. And you thought, oh shit, Jake's dead. Tobias is also dead at this point. We'll get into that in a bit. Rachel and Axe see that this could potentially be a trap. So they see Jake in sort of a midsection of stairs in this mall, near dead. He's not doing too well. He's in a pool of blood. His neck's been bitten into. He shouldn't really last long, and I don't understand why David didn't finish him off. But that's, the plot's got to keep going. You know how it is. So they devise a plan. Axe demorphs. There's a noise in a shop nearby. Axe goes to investigate. Meanwhile, Rachel demorphs and thinks about what she's going to do next, and David in Animorphs sneaks up on her, and she jumps over the railings to escape his first lunge, and then she drops onto a large pot, not particularly large, but a pole, balances on it, and then the mall police show up. David scurries off. Rachel and Axe are wondering what to do. They morph fly, they land on Jake's ear. The police call Cassie's mum, who's the vet. She comes, Cassie's with her, and Rachel and Axe say, if you didn't already fucking know, this is Jake. Please help him. He needs to demorph sometime soon, else he'll be trapped in this morph, and he could well die. And the tiger goes off to the zoo, and Cassie's mum is rather perplexed when the wounded tiger disappears and somehow ends up with a clean bill of health back in its enclosure, because it was the garden's tiger. But I'm supposing that's a subplot that never gets explored, but that would be quite interesting. There are weird things going on in this town, and somebody at some point is going to say, look, we need a fucking, town hall meeting on all the strange shit that's going on. I'm sure somebody's done a fanfic of that sort of stuff, but that's not for us today. We're going to carry on with this one. Rachel and Axe then decide it's best to go tell Marco what's going on, because they think Marco could be in danger. He's not aware of what's going on, so they fly to him. And they see his window open. Rachel's like, hold on, that's a bit funny. But by this point, Axe has gone to fly into the window. Marco's awake, and he gives it a good walloping with a baseball bat to the face. Now remember, Harry's head is probably only about so big. About that. baseball bat, probably about so big, wallop, things going at probably about 20 miles an hour as it's decelerating, thing is probably going about the same, so you've got 40 miles an hour, essentially, of hunk of metal, hunk of bird, and he isn't dead, which is a surprise to me. Maybe it was a glancing blow, but it's rather descriptive, really, because Rachel describes a hunk of beak flying past her or something like that, and that's got to hurt. But Axe is down for the count at this point. Rachel doesn't know if he's dead or not. Turns out David has morphed Marco. Bad news. Rachel wonders what to do. David, in the meantime, has demorphed from Marco, morphed to Golden Eagle, and starts to chase her, and he's faster than her. Rachel decides to lead him somewhere, and it's a bunch of telephone cables, hoping that he'd, I don't know, hit them and burst into flames. But he catches her just beforehand, grabs on, and starts to talon the life out of her, as it were. And then Tobias comes shooting down, bang, grabs David, who lets go of Rachel, and he says, "I shall have my revenge," and flies off. So he's just seen Tobias, because I know it's night. He probably thinks because it wouldn't be Jake. It wouldn't have been Axe. Yeah, who's he going to think it is? Cassie is elsewhere. Maybe he thinks it's Cassie. So, assuming he can't see that well in the dark, he probably wouldn't recognise the red-tailed hawk, but he would have recognised the red-tailed hawk because he had killed a red-tailed hawk last time. Right. But I believe at the start of this chapter it said the sun had started to rise. So there's obviously going to be light around. So when David drops Rachel as he's being attacked by this different bird of prey, at some point during this ordeal, he must have had a look at what attacked him, and he'd see a red-tailed hawk. And he might jump to the logical conclusion that Tobias is alive. But no, that doesn't happen. Now, this is the worst part of the book. It really is. It's quite bad. It's really bad. Because Tobias is dead. Although he isn't dead. They found a red-tailed hawk dead on David's bed at the end of the last book. Or so it would seem. Turns out it wasn't Tobias, it was a random red-tailed hawk. Yeah. Major cop-out. Now, before you say, yeah, there could have been a red-tailed hawk nearby. Firstly, a red-tailed hawk is going to stay fucking well away from a golden eagle. We've pretty much established that in the other Animorphs books. But secondly, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. Red-tailed hawks are diurnal. They don't fly at night. Where's he found this red tail from? Tobias was following him. You really think David would get him mistaken for another bird that's, I don't know, sitting in a tree somewhere? I really doubt it, and the fact that he would have killed this bird and not heard a little bit of thought speech at any point. And then it's the excuse is... Hold on, where's the excuse? So this is the start of chapter 8. Tobias was alive. It turned out David had killed a red-tailed hawk, and Jake had seen that dead hawk, only it was a different red tail. Tobias had simply lost David early in the evening and had been searching for him ever since. That doesn't make sense. That's not what was written in the last book. For reference, page 133. 2:30, as in 2:30 in the morning. I was wrong about David, etc., etc. And then Tobias's thought speak came from somewhat closer. I see him. We have a traitor. Follow him, I said tersely. This is Jake, by the way. But don't let him see you. Axe and I will follow. Tobias spread his wings and set off. So I don't know where Rachel's got this idea of Tobias had lost him in the early evening came from. It's 2:30 in the morning. Jesus Christ. And we can't forgive the book for this major cop-out. I compare it to The Walking Dead. If any of you have seen The Walking Dead, there's an episode where Glenn, the Asian character, I think it was like in the 4th or 5th season or something, the episode ends with him on the floor and zombies all around. You see him screaming and you see guts flying from where his body would be. And everyone thinks, oh shit, Glenn's dead. And then it turns out at the start of the next episode, that wasn't the case, and he found another person's body and they were ripping that one up and he got away. Do you think people were happy with that little gotcha moment? No, people were pissed. Everyone hated it. And the same thing has happened here. Book 21. Oh no, Tobias is dead. Book 22. No, it was a different Hawk. Tobias is still alive. I could forgive it a little bit if it made any fucking sense, but hawks, red-tailed hawks, are diurnal. There wouldn't have been any other hawks around. The only obvious hawk around would be the one following David. Major cop-out, and that's... Sorry, book. Yeah, that's cheap. That's a very cheap writing tactic, and I don't like it. I do not like that. It plays with your emotions, and then it's just like, gotcha! Not only that, but as I've mentioned, David must now know that Tobias is still alive, because Tobias fucking attacked him in the morning. The sun is coming up. David can probably see what's going on, okay? But let's move on from there. Turns out that David had tied Marco up in his closet. Let's read. As for Marco, well, Marco had awakened to find David standing over him with the baseball bat. He had been tied up and locked in his wardrobe. It had taken him the rest of the night to get loose. Right, you do realise that Marco can morph. I mean, that's the point of the books. Tied up in a closet. That's not really a problem. I mean, there's the thought of, oh, he could have been hanging over Marco with the baseball bat, but he had been locked in his wardrobe, which implies that David isn't watching him. So Marco's just sat there, tied up, thinking, oh, I wish there was some way out of this particular pickle. Fucking snap out of it, Marco, you dunder-headed dunder. Let's leave it at that. In the midst of all this, they of course have the 6 leaders coming for this meeting in the Marriott Hotel. Rachel gets it wrong and she keeps saying 5 leaders. They miss out one of the leaders apparently. Apparently he's dead now. Who knows? But their plan is now to fuck it up. Fuck it up. Remember that Eric told them the wrong day, which does make me think that Eric is up to no good in some way here. That's a theory episode after I've done all of these reviews and I can round stuff up. But now the meeting is taking place on this night and the Animorphs have a plan. So terrible weather, but they go into dolphin morph, swim to the shore, demorph in the surf, and then come out as rhinoceroses, is that the plural? And elephants charge onto the beach. The guards are, for the most part, none the wiser, and the security, but they eventually start getting shot, but they've acquired these morphs from the gardens if they hadn't already had those morphs, and they're bulletproof near enough, so they're doing all right. And they go up to the resort, and they smash down a house. One of these little chalets, I imagine they probably are. And they find one of the foreign presidents or prime ministers. It doesn't specify which one, apart from it's one of the foreign leaders. And since Rachel misses out Germany as one of the people meeting up, it's either France, Russia, it's not China in there, one of the other ones, Bolivia or something. And she sees this guy, and apparently he's drunk. He's sat alone in his thing, pouring himself drinks, and he's fucking, hey, fucking walrus on legs. Something shit like that. L'enfant. It is a crash through the door. On your way now. And it made me think, hold on, so this meeting's taking place today, and this world leader, who's apparently in this meeting talking about problems in the Middle East, is drunk. So either the meeting's already taken place and he's gotten drunk after the fact, or he planned to turn up to this meeting pissed out of his fucking trolley. Which is it? Because neither makes sense. Fucking book. But I do forgive the book for such transgression. But yeah, we can operate under the assumption that this meeting was never supposed to take place. Eric just lied. He just straight up lied. And the French president was just on a fucking holiday. That's what it seems, let's be honest. But apparently, because a few chalets in the nearby vicinity were broken down by elephants, the whole thing is cancelled. It's never mentioned. It's never mentioned that it's cancelled because, as I've just mentioned, it's either already done or it doesn't exist. But yeah, so a few chalets are taken down and the elephants and rhinoceroses leave. So they just say, might as well call off the meeting. Middle East, pff, not important. Look at these chalets. They've fallen down. How dare. And then, of course, they run away to the surf, and ne'er a book goes by where Visser 3 isn't involved in some way. And the only involvement he has in this book is that he stood there on the beach. Why? As Tony just saying, damn it, foiled again, screaming at the Animorphs. And you just think, why is he there? Why are you on the beach? Why are you just there in the pissing rain as Tony saying, I shall have my revenge? Twiddle, twiddle, twirl. Why? Just why? Now, remember in the last book we talked about Sadler, Rachel and Jake's cousin, who got injured in a bike accident. He's in the hospital. Jake and Rachel are going to go visit Sadler with the rest of the family. So they go to the hospital, and it turns out that David has morphed Sadler. And there is this miracle. Sadler is now alive. A few minutes ago, I think Jake's dad, Steve, said that he looked like minced burger meat or something the day before, so he's obviously bruised and bloodied and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But now he's perky and fine, and he's awake, and he's all good, and everyone's just like, what the fuck? What's all this about, then? Obviously, nobody's going to suspect morphing, unless any of them were controllers, but no, we're just going to skip over that. Apparently, what happened, according to the doctor, 2 doctors took him on his surgery table, or whatever it was, hospital table, into an elevator, or lift as we call it in good old Blighty. Go up, elevator brakes, and when it finally gets fixed, it opens, and the doctors are unconscious, and Sadler is good as new. Complete mystery. Get Columbo on the case. Now, it's never explained what really went down, but we can hypothesize here. So, of course, David was in Morph at some point. You know how in all the movies and all the video games, elevators have that grate at the top, that little hatch that opens so you can get out into the elevator shaft? I'm not sure if that's a common thing, but it is in all the movies and that, and this was written for California, so obviously it's real. So I imagine either he was an insect morph on Sadler's body and then morphed when he knew he got into the elevator, or he was in a larger morph, maybe the Lion or something, or some other morph that he's acquired, because he must have acquired loads by now. And he's up above that hatch on top of the elevator, and then when it got in, I don't know, took a swipe at the elevator cables, or like shoved a winch in there or something, causing it to fault, and then open the hatch, jump in, knock out the guards, and what does he do with Sadler? Because Sadler disappears. Somebody on the Animorphs Discord theorised he could have morphed something that could eat him. And then you think, well, okay, if he used his lion to eat him, there would be no doubt a large pool of blood, because a lion can't swallow a human in a single bite. But I think what happened is that hatch comes through as a morph, knocks out the guards, acquires Sadler, shoves Sadler's body back up there on top of the elevator where no one can find it, replaces the hatch, gets into bed, morphs Sadler, all done. And that's how you end up that situation. But that's how I think it goes down. There are probably other explanations that are just as, I think, reasonable. So, but that's how I see it. That's how I see it going. So Sadler's body is just in this elevator shaft, just going up and down on top of this elevator. It's sad, and I think also in a way, because David has said a lot of times, I don't kill humans, I only kill animals. So it would be against David's character to have killed Sadler there and then, which throwing him down the elevator shaft or just eating him would count as killing him. Putting him on top of the elevator shaft isn't. killing him per se. You're just moving him, putting him somewhere else. So yeah, I think my ideas are the best here, and you should agree with me because I know what I'm talking about. I'm probably talking bollocks, aren't I? And then we get probably the most awesome scene in this book. It is gorgeous. It's great. And they're standing around Sadler, all the family around, like, oh, Sadler's all this, that, and the other. Jake and Rachel are standing off to the side thinking, shit, that is most definitely David. And then all throughout this, Rachel has been wondering, there's a scene I forgot, fucking forgot, and we'll talk about it now. Earlier on, before they went to the Marriott Hotel, I believe, they were in the cafeteria, and David came over as Marco and said, I want the blue box. He wants the Esquivel device. I can't believe I missed this scene. That's the problem with ad-libbing, you see. You just go off on tangents and take yourself on paths unknown. So, David comes to the table, says, I want the blue box. And I want it now, or else you're all doomed. You're all fucked, innit? I'll fucking have you. I will... Now... And Cassie was going to follow David as he's leaving, but Jake stops her. Rachel, on the other hand, goes up to follow him, and Jake lets her go, lets her do it. And she follows David out. He demorphs on his way out, going across the field or what have you, and she gets a fork and jabs it against his ear. And she threatens his family, says, your mother and father... I'll fucking kill them if you think you're going to get one over on us, sonny Jim Milado. And David, obviously, is going to take this into account. And there's another scene I missed as well, which we'll get into. Christ, bloody hell me. Shit. But yeah, she threatens David with a fork against his ear, which I think is awesome and classic Rachel. And she thinks to herself, oh, Christ, I've never done that before. I've never threatened someone with a fork, first off, but to kill their family, who are essentially innocent people. Granted, they're controllers, but obviously the hosts are innocent, so innocent people. And she starts to see that side of herself. And I mean, she's known that side's there before. She's talked to Cassie like, there's bloody dust everywhere. I need to clean this place. Fuck off, dust! Fucking hell. Like communists, you can never get fucking rid of them. Where was I? Let's just move on, because I've forgotten that point now. So when they're leaving the Marriott Hotel after they've done all that damage, David meets them. They're dolphins, and he comes at them as a killer whale, and they're trying to outswim him here, there, everywhere. Apparently, he thinks Tobias is dead, even though he attacked him earlier. So Cassie goes away, says, I can morph a different creature that'll scare him off. So they say, right, yeah, you disappear. He won't think anybody's missing, because he thinks there's one less of us. So they start to swim around him and all that. And then suddenly Cassie comes up and scares him off as a baleen whale. And he swims off. So essentially what's happening now is there's like a big hunt thing going on. There's constantly who's chasing who's getting the upper hand over who. And it's really exciting stuff. It really is. And then we get to this part where David has taken Sadler's body, acquired it and morphed it. And he's going to live with their family. And there's this big dilemma of, what do we do now? Because if we take care of David, then Sadler's parents are going to think they've lost their kid again, which is a dreadful thing to do. It really is. And we've seen Animorphs do sorts of things like this before. Well, not like this, to this degree, certainly. But remember in book 16, where Cassie talked to Gump and said, don't trust your father, and she was really tearful about it. It's getting into family territory now, where they're affecting other people's family, and this would be the big next step. The family have this hope now that their child is okay, and they're saying, we need to deal with David, it's going to destroy that family, but we got to fucking do it. This all leads back to book 16, The Warning. Who said that book was a fucking filler? What planet are you on, boy? Anyway, page 108, this is an awesome scene, and I'm finally getting to it now after several diversions. But Jake is talking to Rachel. Rachel has been wondering all this time, why did Jake want Axe to go get me back in the first scene? or back at the end of book 21, where he wanted someone to chase David. Didn't choose Cassie, didn't choose Marco, chose Rachel. And she's known all along that she's quite a brutish one, and she's the one who's always going to go head first into things. But she's never fought to the extent where she's basically the one to do all the dirty work, the one to be violent. And she sort of resents Jake for seeing her as that, even though she does sort of see it in herself. It's like the realisation that the flaws that you see in yourself are now being seen in everyone around you. It's not a nice feeling. But Rachel confronts him over this. What did you expect me to do to David? Did you think I was going to kill him? Did you? This is talking about the fork scene, by the way. Is that why you let him go after him? Is that why you sent Axe for me? Because you think I'm some kind of violent nut you can call him whenever you need some dirty work done? Look, Rachel. Every one of us has his strengths and his weaknesses. And my strength is being some kind of crazy killer. And it carries on like that for a while. But on page 108, Jake is juicy. Oh, it's great. This here. Okay, fine, Rachel. You want to do this? Fine. I think you're the bravest member of the group. I think in a bad fight, I'd rather have you with me than anyone else. But yeah, Rachel, I think there's something pretty dark down inside you. Ooh, I read that and I actually did that noise. I don't make noises when I read, but I actually went, oh, Jake, damn, boy. I think you're the only one of us who would be disappointed if this all ended tomorrow. Fuck, Jake. This is the drama, mate. Cassie hates all this. Marco has personal reasons for being in this war. Axe just wants to go home and fight with Yerks and his own people. But you, Rachel, you love it. It's what makes you brave. It's what makes you so dangerous to the Yerks. I worry about you, Rachel, more than any of the others except Tobias. I feel like this war is to you like booze is to an alcoholic. Like I don't know what would happen to you if the all... Sorry, I'll start again. Like I don't know what will happen to you if it all ends someday. What are you going to do? Go back to being the world's greatest shopper? Go back to gymnastics and getting good grades? Oh, I'm drooling. I'm fucking drooling. This is awesome. And I've no doubt that when it comes to the roundup of Cycle 5, that will probably be my favourite moment. Best moment so far. Probably throughout the whole series I've read so far. That was stunning. I love it. I fucking love it. Just the way he so casually says, I think you've got some fucking dark stuff in you, and I don't think you're going to survive after this war. Oh. And that bit at the end there as well. What are you going to do when all this ends? Are you going to go back to shopping? It's almost like they know what's coming in book 53/54. It's almost like they know where they're going with this character. And Jake is saying, I don't know what's going to become of you. I don't think you can survive after this war. He said it's here. The clue for what happens in 53/54. What Jake said there, that's the foreshadow. That's the foreshadow. Love it. You've had some pretty shit moments so far, but that was gorgeous. What happens next, right? They're talking about what to do with this. They're obviously shocked at what's happened to Sadler. And they know, because Rachel has this moment where she's talking to her little sister. Turns out David has been listening in. So David is spying on them now. He's spying on them all. So they meet up at the barn to discuss what to do with David. And they know that he's going to be spying on them. This is their big meeting place. This is where they know David would want best to spy on them. This is where David makes his big mistake. He should have known that the Animorphs would have known that he would have spied on them there. And that they would have come up with this plan, and used it to trap him. But he doesn't see that. This is his one big slip up. He thought he could just go in, listen to what they say, and it would be an accurate representation of what they wanted to do. They say that the Esquivel device is dismantled, so Axe was able to dismantle that thing. And that they put it somewhere where only Ratmorph could get to, or at least they used Ratmorph to deposit these various little bits. The thing that confused me here is that we find out that They suspected David was there. Tobias was off seeking for him, basically. And Tobias says, well, I saw a golden eagle come by, demorph to him, and then morph rattlesnake and go into the barn. And that's how he spied on you, as a rattlesnake. And you think, that wouldn't work. Snakes don't have ears. They hear through vibrations in the ground. A snake would not be able to just decipher what somebody is saying. So, no, he can't have used rattlesnake to spy on them. You can see them all right, but he wouldn't have a fucking clue what they were saying. Oh dear. And Cassie twice mentions that rattlesnakes have poison, or they bite and inject poison. No, Cassie, for the animal expert, you get that wrong. It's venom. Poison is where you ingest. Venom is when you're injected, or it's delivered into you. You know, simple little difference, but you're supposed to be the animal expert, so fucking sort your shit out! They meet up with David in a fast food place, and he says, I want Rachel to guide me to these various little bits. And they find out, I'm doing that a lot, aren't I? That David was spying in on them all along. So they're like, oh, so defeated again. And David's getting very cocky now. He thinks he's got a hold on them. Of course, he still doesn't think Tobias is dead. He still thinks Tobias is dead, even though he should know pretty well that he's alive. He should. It just seems a bit silly that he doesn't at this point. But, yeah, so they go to the construction site where they've hidden the cube. And there's a whole bunch of morphing that goes on. I'm not going to go into detail of how David makes sure that they all get to where he wants them in particular morphs, but that's how it happens. Turns out, by the end of all that morphing palaver, there are 4 cockroaches, and Rachel has morphed rat. And there's a bottle. David uses the bottle to put the cockroaches in and sorts them out like that. So they're trapped now. And he thinks, oh, I'm sure Tobias isn't still alive and he can zoom down and undo the thing. Of course he can, and that's what happens. But before that happens, Rachel leads him into this series of pipes and says, the blue boxes around here in little bits. And they get the first piece, which turns out to be a Lego block. And I don't know how David didn't realise that. They've got a pretty distinctive feel to them. But whatever. David is tricked in that regard. Rachel says the next part is down there. So they go in there. Big box that they've constructed previously in the barn, whilst they knew that David was being Saddler. And David suspects at the last minute, and they have a little fight, him and Rachel. She bites her own tail off to get out, which is a bit silly of David, but, you know, in the midst of a fight, you do probably make silly mistakes quite frequently. And because the animals are now freed by Tobias, the animals close the door and David is in his box. Little box he can't demorph. They keep him past the 2-hour limit, and there's a lot of emotional stuff in this scene where they know that they've got him and they know what they're going to do to him. Nobody's happy about it, not even Axe, who's usually very cold about this sort of stuff. And they do it, they trap him in rat morph. And then Rachel and Axe take it in turns to take him away to a distant island where humans very rarely go. And throughout all of this, Rachel is subjected, and probably Axe as well, Rachel and Axe are subjected to screams and cries and pleas all throughout. And Rachel thinks about, shit, this is going to replay in my head forever. You know, if I think I've had it bad so far, this is the worst of it so far. And that's how the book ends. And some kid in school a few months later said, I thought I heard someone talking on that island. It's haunted. He was screaming, no, no. And yeah, that's the book. That's the solution. And the solution to the problem that is this trilogy. Not that the trilogy was a problem. Book 20 was the weakest of the bunch with a 7. That one's a 9. This one. What do we do about this one? Let's talk about some of the deeper things. Firstly, let's get the flaws out of the way. Let's just discuss those flaws. The whole cop-out of Tobias not being dead all along is shit. It really is. it's shit. I don't need... That's a pretty good word for what happened there. It is such a cop-out. It is like that Glenn thing in Walking Dead. Oh no, he's dead. Episode ends. Oh, next episode starts. Oh, he's alive. It's like, no, that's just shit. What are you doing? You're just playing with us there. So yeah, that's awful. The whole meeting thing. The Marriott Hotel thing has been going throughout all of these three. And it was at its biggest in The Threat. And for such a big mission, it felt like a really underwhelming climax to that little mission. They just went in, wrecked a couple of chalets and fucked off. And that was the problem solved. It was so anticlimactic. And I understand that the Marriott Hotel was a subplot to the rest of it. But we do have to remember, this is probably, even though it is a subplot, it's probably the most important mission so far, or at least one of them. And it was just so anticlimactic and underwhelming in how it ended. It was just like, how do we finish this? They run in as elephants and knock down a few walls of some buildings that aren't really that important. Great, okay. So yeah, that was shit. And the fact that this all came to the conclusion that it did because David didn't know that Tobias was dead, that was the linchpin. That was what gave the Animorphs the advantage. That it shouldn't have happened. He got attacked by Tobias. He should know that Tobias is alive. The hawk that he did kill, firstly, how the fuck did he get it? Because they're diurnal. Secondly, if Tobias is being attacked by a golden eagle, he's probably going to say something to you. He's not just going to go down, right, might as well not bother saying anything, you know. I'm just practically a goner at this point. Why would he... It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's a handy little plot conveniencing again. And that combined with the whole cop-out of Tobias not being dead all along is a serious negative on this book. And I mean serious negative. Those are the negatives of this book. The positives are stunning. This book is intense. It really is. Not a single page goes by where you're not in the middle of something going on. It is full on. It is action-packed. It is tense. I felt it when I was reading it. It's like, what's going on here? This is just such a good pacing. It really is great pacing. And the themes that it hits are incredible. Dark. Really dark. And what goes on between the team, especially between Jake and Rachel, is... I've already told you about how much I love that bit with Jake. That was gorgeous. Best moment in the series, in the whole series so far, I think, easily. Yeah, the character interactions were great. The way they used the character interactions, or how they felt David perceived those character interactions. So in the barn, I keep getting them mixed up. Marco and Rachel have a little spat, and it's quite aggressive. It's quite bitey and mean. And it becomes quite obvious quite quickly that it was a show to show David that they were demoralised and they were falling apart, to make him feel cocky. But the way it was done, it was a really nice touch, and it's nice to... It's strange, really, because do the characters really feel that way about each other? Like Rachel and Marco in that precise moment? Or was it just an act? But there is a lot of tension, not only in the situations that we're in this book, but also between the characters, especially with the whole turning David into a rat thing towards the end. Even Cassie is like, this pushes so many boundaries, but I have no choice. And they all, despite all their differences, they all come to an agreement on this one thing, that they have to do something about this David character. Rachel's development here, there's not... The thing about Rachel is she's never really developed. It's just... Her personality is amplified. It doesn't move anywhere. It just amplifies. It just increases in volume, and it really has done here. It's almost... I think by the end of this book, she accepts that she is the one doing Jake's dirty work. And there's a lot of little character building stuff with Jake in the background here from Rachel's perspective, in that he has become cold and he uses them to their particular strengths and weaknesses. And Jake has been doing that a lot more recently. And Rachel has thought, hold on, what is my strength? What is my strength that he is using here? Oh shit, it's that I will do the dirty work. I am the battering ram. And by the end, she takes on that role as the battering ram. She says, no, I'm staying with David. I'm doing this thing. I'm doing the dirty work. Axe is there too, but that's just Axe. Yeah, but that's... I mean, there's not so much a message in this trilogy. It's not so much a message. Which is a first, really, because usually these books have those little messages ingrained into them. But it's more of an epic. It's more of a bigger, just this is your story. This is the big situation, and this is what matters in this one. And it's the dark moments and the situations they're put in that put across what the book wants to put across, rather than the message in the background. I hope you get what I'm talking about. I'm probably just rambling on at this point, but yeah, it deals with probably some of the darkest themes we've had. Leaving Rat David on an island. What do you do? From the very start, they've been in between a rock and a hard place. They probably made the right decision to turn him into an Animorph. I think they went about things the wrong way. I think their lack of trust in him and their displays of animosity towards him were part of the reason he turned out the way he did. I do think that there's a problem in that it was very much like a Daenerys Targaryen thing. If you've seen Game of Thrones, I'm sure most of you have. But most people didn't like the way that Daenerys just snapped in the latter couple of episodes of Game of Thrones. How she just abruptly went from this, semi-flawed good person, and then she became Hitler. It just like that. And a very similar thing happened with David, where last book, you felt, yeah, he's made mistakes, but they seem understandable, and, he does help the team out. He does what is required of him. Snap, he's Hitler now. And you think, it was a very abrupt shift, and it is a bit jarring. But that was more in the threat. In the solution, we're dealing with him in that state, and we're dealing with this book on its own merits, at least at this stage. So yeah, the trilogy as a whole does have its major flaws. If you want to see the more minute ones, go look at the individual videos. But overall, I think that was the biggest flaw in... The two biggest flaws were that the Marriott Hotel storyline was underwhelmingly brought to a climax, and David's abrupt turn to the dark side, his Daenerys Targaryen-esque turn to evil, where it was just like the snap of a finger, and bang, he's evil. It is very jarring. And I think it would have been nice to have squeezed another book in here somewhere. Somewhere in the middle. Take the threat and split that down the middle and push another book in there, where we see David become this evil, awful person. Because he did turn out that way. In the threat, for most of the threat, he seemed all right. In the Discovery, we don't really know, because he's sort of... Things are happening to him rather than he's happening to things. But yeah, another book in the midst of this. Make it a 4-book mini-series, where one of those books deals with him becoming more evil, because I do think it was a bit too abrupt, and I think we could have done with those extra 150 pages to really make that feel natural. The big philosophical question that I cannot answer here really is, did they make the right decision in turning him into a rat and leaving him on the island? My initial thought is, that's essentially torture. Now, do you just kill him there and be done with it, or do you torture him for an unknown period of time? They chose that option. They never mentioned the word torture, but I'm sure they know deep down that it is torture to him. It is a torture. Would it not be nicer to just do the mercy killing? That's a question for you. That's not one I'm going to tell you the answer to here, because I don't have the answer. I usually do, but not this time. So that is a big philosophical question. And this book is full of them. This book, It's really hard. I want to give it a 10 because it is one of the best books in the series. Just it's written so well. It flows so well. It's the right pace. And some of the moments, like the Jake moment, are just stunning. And it's a really impactful book for the series. It's taken the whole series to a new level of dark. And it's all sprung from the warning. I think the warning was a warning for all this sort of shit going on right now. Because we're seeing similar themes coming back to the front here. And but the problem with this book, I can't give it a 10. I can't give it a 10. Let's go back to my cake analogy. This thing it's a fucking wedding cake, and it's got chocolate and it's got marshmallows, and it's been made by the greatest cake maker in the whole world. And then he's just taken a turd and just slopped it on the top. Do I give that cake a 10? No, you've just placed a turd on it. It's not a 10. It's less than 10. It is not 100% satisfactory to me. The three major flaws that I've pointed out have to bring this book down. And it might be below a 9. It might be an 8. It's certainly not a 7. It's 8 or 9. But I'd hate myself for giving it an 8 because it's better than an 8. It really is. But the Tobias bits, those flaws are so massive that it almost knocked 2 points off it. But I'm going to give it a 9. It's a weak 9. But don't let that fool you. There is some stunning stuff in here. It's just those flaws that if they were dealt with properly, this book would have been the best in the series. Without question, it would have been. But those flaws are so disappointingly massive that it has to affect the score. Jake's leadership, by the way, before I forget. Good. I think very good. It was Cassie that came up with the plan in the end, but Jake facilitated that. So props to him for that. His dealing with Rachel. Is that what you want to... I mean, it's being honest. And it's him saying what her strengths are. Being brutally honest, but saying why he needs her. What he wants her to do. She knows her place better than ever at this point. And by the end, she accepts that role. And that was because Jake opened up to her and said, right, this is how things stand here. I think Jake did all right. I don't think there was too much... He came up with the plan for the Marriott Hotel, which again was the book 16 tactic of just go in there, just fucking storm the place. Yeah, it's very much a book 16 thing again with the there was even rhinoceroses there, and it's not the cleverest plan, but it worked somehow. I'm going to give Jake a 7 for this one, a nice steady 7. So well done, Jake. Well done. Right, so that is the David trilogy done. It averages out to just over an 8, which would seem quite low, but I think, is it better than the sum of its parts? No. No, I think if there was an extra book squeezed in which developed David, I'd say absolutely yes, but I think it about evens out. It's about the same as the sum of its parts here. But there's so much good stuff in here. It's just a shame about the stuff that drags it down. It really is a shame. Anyway, that's that done. You'd think, oh, he's just finished 22. He must move on to 23, surely. Well, you're fucking wrong. Because next up, we're taking a departure and we're going into something a bit lighter, a bit more light-hearted. I mean, for the last few books, you know, it's all been rather deep and dark and mysterious and edgier seat stuff. So we're going to go on a light-hearted adventure. It's not going to be though, is it? The thrills keep on spilling. And it's the Hawkbajir Chronicles next up. And boy howdy, am I looking forward to this one. Bit less glare on that, I think. Whew. Yeah, it keeps coming nice and strong. So please join me next week as we will go through the Hawkbajir Chronicles. And we will meet, for the first time, my favourite character. So thank you very much for watching. Please join the Animorphs Discord for more Animorphs related banter. And toodaloo, I suppose. Check out my fan fiction if you haven't already. It's in the link in the description, so is the Discord link. And bye. Ta-ra.